Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, colleagues on the panel, political leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored and humbled to be speaking at this moment when all my colleagues have spoken. I also learned that I share quite a bit of stuff with Francis, because I'm also an ardent reader of the President's speeches since 1986. I have filed every speech and read each one of them because they are interesting, not only in terms of the content, but also the contradictions. I find them quite interesting. And that is where I will start. That about 2 weeks ago, I received the official invitation to this event to come and interact with Parliament. And you know, the fact that this is a theme where we talk about Parliament as the voice of the people. I therefore really want to congratulate the Parliament administration, the Speaker and the Deputy, you know, for creating this forum, this platform, where we can have this interaction. But I must confess that when I received the invitation, I received it with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Excitement because it is often, it's not often that you get an opportunity to speak to your members of Parliament in a formal setting of this nature. I realized that actually my expectation was that we would be having members of Parliament here, not just the Parliament leadership. So I thought we would be engaging in a much more, you know, diverse conversation with various members of Parliament. I therefore view this invitation as my rare opportunity to speak directly to the Parliament and speak deep from the bottom of my heart about the space of Parliament as an institution in my life and the life of many Ugandans. And I must confess that I agree with the Deputy Speaker that we cannot talk here about the 10th Parliament. We can only talk about the Parliament as an institution, because that's what it is. The voice of the voiceless, we are here, so we want to see Parliament as the voice of the voiceless men who work our nation's mines and spend days in grazing lands looking after cattle and goats and sheep, and those who spend the nights on treacherous waters on our lakes earning a living. Think about the voiceless women who farm the home gardens and keep our homes and look after the sick and do petty trade on the streets of our capital and the towns across this beautiful country. Think about the voiceless teachers who spent countless hours in our classrooms shaping the future of our children, and that way shaping the future and the destiny of this great nation. The voiceless doctors and nurses and midwives who work day and night to save lives. The thousands of our students that study on the margins of our education system, and the young men and women, educated and uneducated, who walk the streets of our cities looking for jobs and an opportunity to earn a living. And of course, the voiceless millions of children that join our school system and disappear before they complete primary 7. So when this theme was relayed to me about Parliament as the voice of the people, that's basically what was running in my mind. And I would want to challenge the Speaker, because when she spoke here, she talked about the digitization of the archives. That speaks to me. As a researcher, I make some money when you digitize that information and I can access it. But these voices here, they probably will never know that there is a digital system where you can easily access the archives. But how do we reflect their aspirations in our work as Parliament? But the excitement was actually overcome by anxiety as I reflected on the theme of our discussion today and what has become of the Parliament of Uganda and consequently the 10th Parliament. As I framed the title of my discussion today, I reflected on the proposed theme of the debate, the voice of the people, a reflection on the 10th Parliament. I wondered whether the voice of the people was a statement of fact a rhetorical question, or better still, a question that needed to provide answers. And I was intrigued that actually Francis gave us more rhetorical questions. Normally when you give rhetorical questions, it's like things are complicated, things are hard. So you want everybody to be part of the answering. So 3 days ago, as I plowed into the Daily Monitor while doing my routine research, which I do for a living, I came across a quotation by President Museveni while addressing the people of Ruhama, which Francis has just shared with us. So we are following almost the same speeches. And I will repeat for emphasis that the president says Parliament is just like a place for all to talk. It's like a bus park, but real things are located somewhere else. If you look at an independent, that's the president saying, he will never reach me. So I hit my Google browser looking for statements of denial by the president's handlers. There was none. I looked for statements of outrage. There was none, even in Parliament, or even from Parliament. I kept wondering how the president, the fountain of honor, would refer to the Parliament of Uganda, the voice of the people, as a bus park, and it passes as if it was something normal from all of us. I then came across another Daily Monitor story of January 11, 2018, headlined, "Respect Parliament, Olanya tells executive." The Daily Monitor quotes Deputy Speaker Jacob Olanya as telling the executive, and I quote, "Respect this institution. We cannot sit here, spend people's time taking decisions that are simply ignored. It is not only bad politics, it is also bad manners." And that's exactly what I felt when I read the person holding the title of the Fountain of Honor calling the Parliament, comprised of what is supposed to be our representatives, a bus park. Bad politics and bad manners. And we have to live with this and figure out how do we deal with this. And we have to depend on the leadership of Parliament to be able to challenge those kinds of actions. So what President Museveni and Deputy Speaker Olanya and the MPs who contributed to the debate on Tuesday, January 9, is almost what happens at a typical Uganda bus park. Because you see, there are bus parks and then there is Uganda bus park. Because if you have traveled and you have been to bus terminals, you know how organized the bus park is. So when we talk about Parliament of Uganda as a bus park, you have to also understand the nature of the bus park. So at the Uganda bus park, park managers, bus owners, bus touts, passengers, etc., all make different decisions that can either be implemented or ignored with valid consequences. It is on the basis of what Mr. Museveni and Deputy Speaker said that I chose to title my talk today, "From the Voice of the People to a Bus Park." So that's the topic of my talk. Because what the Constitution provides is supposed to be the voice of the people. But what we are seeing is that shift from what it is supposed to be to what it is now, and therefore how do we then reclaim that institution to be what it ought to be? To give credit, I can point some instances when Parliament reflected the will of the people and it made us proud. I can reflect when Parliament demanded for accelerated legislation on petroleum, on petroleum. I think that was phenomenal. And we saw Parliament put its feet down and say, government, you have a responsibility to do this, and government complied. We can reflect on when Parliament demanded for accountability for the death of the late Catherine Nebanda, RIP. That was a fight. That's what people's representatives are supposed to do. We can reflect on when Parliament demanded that the health sector budget be increased to enable recruitment of midwives. Or when Parliament voted to inquire into the 6 billion presidential handshake, and a reported recommendation that almost has now been ignored. Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, I want to implore you that let Parliament not forget that Ugandan taxpayers spent money to be able to get that inquiry done. and therefore look at the recommendation, and then the people of Uganda will say, yes, we have a voice. But we can also reflect when Parliament attempted to demand accountability on Chibok Squad and Border 2010. It was responding to the outcry of the people of Kampala, but because it could not demand for the disbanding of these groups, then that qualifies it to be a bus park, because people have suffered because of these militia groups until someone says, now I need to demobilize them. As I move to my conclusion, I want to basically highlight a number of areas where I think Parliament needs to be assertive, to be focused, to be able to be the voice of the people that it should be. If we take the traditional roles of Parliament, representation, oversight, legislation, budget appropriation, we can look at a number of areas where Parliament can purposefully do its work, and the people of Uganda were then proud of that Parliament. On service delivery, for example, that's one area where everybody recognizes that there is a breakdown in service delivery, including members of Parliament. But when citizens demand for improved public service delivery, Parliament has basically conspired with the executive and the local political elite to create new districts, upgrade makeshift towns into municipalities, and make trading centers into boards and town councils. What does this give us? When we are looking for doctors and nurses and midwives and teachers, Parliament gives us more MPs, more chairpersons 0C5, more district councillors, more RDCs, more DSOs, more district police commanders. And I know that members of Parliament know that Ugandan citizens are not looking for these kinds of people. Because if you have a failing education system, you don't produce RDCs, you produce school inspectors. It's simple logic. So I think that on the question of service delivery, Parliament has a lot to do to deserve the respect of the people. I should mention that every year, we see the Minister of Primary Education announcing PROE results, and then we celebrate the success of some 600 pupils who completed primary 7. But we forget that over 1 million students or over 1 million pupils never complete primary 7.